Shalom, I'm Shani Ferguson from Jerusalem. Today is a very difficult day to be in Israel. 502 days since the kidnappings of a mother and her two red-headed boys, among hundreds of other Israelis and foreigners who were kidnapped by Hamas. The difficulty in today is that Hamas is returning their bodies along with Oded Lifshitz, who was one of the founders of Kibbutz Nir Oz. Kibbutz Nir Oz was one of the hardest hit kibbutzim in the attacks of October 7th. His wife was returned in an exchange earlier on, and her husband was not allowed to return, and he died, was murdered in captivity, and his body was returned today. The difficulty in Shiri, Bibas, and the two babies. First of all, the family is asking, essentially saying they will not consider them home until DNA tests will take place. And at the same time, the country has to take steps, and so they have declared them dead and performed a respectable ceremony before the crossing into Israel, because Hamas made their parade. I don't know if you've had a chance to see their celebratory parades when they released hostages over the past several weeks. And they did the same for this, even though they were returning 4 bodies. They had some of the prisoners that Israel released in this exchange present, dressed as terrorists, holding coffins with celebratory music. A lot of the civilians brought their children to watch, because for them this is an incredible part of their culture that they want them to witness. Smiles, happy music, big signs. Hamas says that they've kept the bodies in freezers because they wanted to show evidence that that the IDF was responsible for their death in one of the attacks. So sure, the civilians haven't had food and water and whatever, but Hamas managed to find a place to store the bodies for the purpose of propaganda. So it's been a very, very heavy day in Israel. One of the things that a lot of people don't know about the kidnapping, and you may have seen the video of the mother who seemed to have that maternal intuition that this was not going to end well. And she wasn't kidnapped by Hamas. She was kidnapped by civilians. Because what happened on October 7th, because the attacks took so long for Israel to reach all the locations, they actually notified civilians in Gaza and said, hey guys, if you want to come, steal, rape, kill, this is exactly what they said, send text messages, called people, come on Israel's week, and you can come and do whatever you want. And so this is how you know that it's part of their culture, because instantly there were civilians that dropped everything and went, and it was civilians that took her hostage and her kids hostage, which is why when the hostages come back, they try to explain to a world that won't believe them that they didn't see any innocent civilians in Gaza. They only witnessed civilians that were cooperating and participating in the activities and supporting Hamas activities. And when the cameras would come on, they would pretend, but a year and a half, this mother and children were in Gaza, and not a single civilian called the IDF to say where they were. A lot of the hostages were held in apartments where there were families with children. And this is the part that, for whatever reason, the world refuses to believe. But if you were in Israel today, the heaviness in the air is so apparent. And for sure on Saturday, we're expecting the release of 6 more living hostages. And some Thai workers are being released. A Bedouin I believe an American citizen. So Israel's releasing terrorists that are held in prison in exchange for all the hostages that were taken from Israel. And, you know, it's even beyond that. Some people are saying, you know, why is the life of one Jew or even the body of a Jew worth so much, so many Palestinians, as if Israel wants to release so many. But I think you could see from this exchange that how Israel values life is exponentially greater than how Hamas and their supporters value death and murder and destruction. And so I would encourage you guys to pray for the families that are receiving the bodies of their loved ones, and the continued recovery of the living hostages who are coming back home sometimes to find out that their families are no longer here. It's not an easy time for Israel right now. There's a threat on the Egyptian border where they're saying it looks like the Egyptian army is growing activity and bringing in troops or tanks or whatever. And so that is a definite concern. But in the midst of it all, it's a day to mourn and to pray. And we will have days of celebration ahead. It is just the way it is. But we will mourn with those who mourn. And we will one day celebrate with those who celebrate. Until next time, I'm Shani Ferguson. Shalom from Jerusalem.